We were talking about politics, and I'm thinking, how do they relate to music? But it seems to be the thing that catapulted you into the rock and roll is heavy
Well,
and sports.
and you know what? It's all the same. I mean, everything is interconnected. You can't, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but I tell people, even now, they'll go, hey, man, let's leave politics, stay in your own lane. Well, let's leave politics out. And I go, you know what? Fuck you. This is all the same. It's all one lane and everything is connected. Um, when I hear people that say, I don't want to know about politics, I go, you better, because that is what controls the planet. That's what controls the economy. That's what controls your life and the people that make the laws they put on your body. And, if you're a woman and you're saying, I'm not into politics, where are you with Roe Wade? Where are you with empowering yourself as a woman on the planet?
Right.
It's all politics.
Right.
And music is politics. And our music, what happened here in the Haight, it was one of the great experiments, although we didn't look at it that way. Um, and I think many in my generation, me being one of them, thought we were going to change the world, that
Mm-hmm.
we could change the world. Now, now I think we were really conduits. What was going on at that particular moment in time on
Mm-hmm.
the planet
Mm-hmm.
was no different than what went on during the Renaissance. And that energy, for lack of a better word, it wasn't magic, but it was a very unique energy that was moving through us, whether we were musicians, writers, filmmakers, politicians.
Peggy Caserta that owned Nasidica is a dear friend of mine. Did you ever go to Nasidica, the clothing store that dressed,
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
Janice's lover and
Sure.
dear friend, the clothing and then providing that. But she always says it was the community. You everything was just exploding. There'd be music. There'd be artists. There was, and Bobby Weir said the same thing. There was just this community, this deep connection with each other.
Yeah. And you know what? It
Deep,
was
deep.
energy, and I don't think any of us thought about it much
Mm,
because we were living it, we were in it.
right.
And only as you get older and you've got more time and you move away from something
Mm-hmm.
do you have time to reflect.
Mm-hmm.
People say you must have been incredible doing all this, knowing how incredible it was. And I know how incredible it is now. I was caught up in the energy, but didn't have the wisdom, the
Mm,
time to realize how magic,
yeah.
that we were really fucking living in a magic moment in time. And that's all the planet is. It's moments, we're all space dust.
Yeah.
And it's the atoms
What's in
that
your
are,
coffee, Michael
yeah.
Zagaris?
Would you like, would you like some?
Well, I don't do Kool-Aid anymore. So let me ask you this. Bill Graham, thank God for him, because he was able to just to sort of keep it in the Winterland Bill Graham thing in that amazing photo that you've been so kind again to let me use on the cover. Like Bill came from, we all know his background, and then to be running, the Fillmore and the Winterland and these crazy kooks of, I mean, the acid test. Let's go to that. The music, the thing, to to have the foresight of organizing all of that. What a trip for him to be sort of the ringmaster.
Well, it was. And even as that was happening, Bill coming from the mime troupe to that, this was all new to him, like it was to me.
Yeah.
And I was into music from the time I was like 5 years old.
Mm.
I mean, I remember the summer that Elvis hit. I was into James Brown. I was into all of that. Bill was into different things, but you don't realize as you're coming up, Bill learned about the scene
Mm.
as he was in it. People forget when Bill started producing shows, you know who the big producer was? It was Chet Helms.
Oh yeah.
But I don't want to say Chet was a hippie. Chet was a hippie. He and Janice hitchhiked out here from
Right.
Texas.
Right.
Bill was a totally different person. He was more of a businessman. He wanted to be an actor.
Yeah.
That was
Which he
his,
was.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he was later in life.
Mhm.
He waited tables at Grossinger's, but he tried to get into that life. Came out here. He was doing bookkeeping, And then when he started doing things for the mime troupe and started doing these shows, he was learning as he went. It was like you teaching yourself to swim. He, and because he was who he was, most of the people that did shows, they were pretty scattered or they were mob. I mean, Chet was a hippie, and it wasn't about the money. It was about doing the show. Bill was about the money, and Bill, when you went on, you're the second act. You go on at 9:15, not 9:16, not 9:22, and he was on your ass.
Well, in my chat with David the other day for this edition, the winter 2023 edition of Haight Street Voice, he was saying how the shows were for the audience. Bill's attitude was, we're doing it for the people.
Yeah.
Let's do nice things for the audience, like give them an apple or whatever. Let's buy bagels at the end of the night for the whole freaking audience. That kind of stuff, and really realizing it's not about the bands, and it is about the bands too. But the audience is right.
Well, and he took care of when he put a show together. He would put a very eclectic lineup together.
Yeah.
You could see Don Ellis. You might see Ohm, a band from the Mission, and then Don Ellis and his orchestra, and then the Grateful Dead.
Didn't he even have Miles Davis once? Jazz.
My only bad acid trip I ever had in my life was Miles Davis opening up for the Dead.
Oy, oy, oy.
And it was right after Bitches Brew came out. And that night, I had taken a whole hit of something. Somebody told me, just take a half or I can't be responsible. And when Miles started playing, I thought I was in hell. And I remember.
What was the venue? Did you say what the venue?
At Fillmore West.
Oh, okay.
I've got the poster on the wall in there. I mean, I kept. And
we'll do a little walk later.
I started freaking out, and I went to leave. But as I got to the stairs at Fillmore West, where you come, all the angels were coming up.
Oh.
And I thought, no. So I remember I turned around, and then there was a little restaurant, and Bill had his office, and Bill was coming out, and I went up to Bill and I said, Bill, somebody dosed me. I said, I'm really freaking out. I don't know what to do. And Bill goes, Michael, you took LSD at Bill Graham's Fillmore West? I said, Bill, somebody, just come with me. And he took me behind the counter into his office, locked me in his office. His office was pretty small. It was covered, wall, ceiling. It was all Fillmore posters. And I remember now I'm really coming on. I got in a fetal position under his desk. And then he brought in about, 20, 30 minutes later, Johnny Walker. And Johnny used to be, when you walked in, he'd always greet you with an apple and something to say. You might go, have a lovely day. We're going to cure the sick. We're going to raise the dead. We're going to grow some hair on a bald man's head. Have a lovely day. And so he has Johnny come in. Well, Johnny is fucked up. He'd been drinking Old Mr. Boston gin. So he got down on his hands and knees, and he pulls out this bottle, and he's nipping on it. And I'm going, no, man, I don't want any. And he started telling me about his days in Alaska when he was a fur trapper.
Whoa.
And how the foxes used to walk in the trail of the lead fox. And I'm like, fuck. And ended up, he crashed out. He passed out on the floor. Show is over. Bill comes in. I'm feeling better, but I'm still pretty high. And Johnny's lying there. Bill goes, you okay to go home? I said, yes, thank you. And he looked at me the way your dad would if he not just like.
Oh my God, that's a fantastic story. Oh my Lord. Oh, I love it. Let's see. What do I? Oh,
but Bill, you know what?
Yeah,
none of what I did in photography at this point in time would have been possible without Bill. Yeah. Bill really helped me. He let me shoot. He saw me backstage a lot, never hassled me about where's your credential.
Right.
It was really cool. At 2 different times, I had no money. I mean, not only didn't have money to pay my rent, I was lucky Michael McClure was my landlord. He may have had less money than me, but sometimes I was 2 months late in paying rent.
Wow.
And Bill loaned me money a couple times.
Holy shit.
And when I'd come back 2 or 3 months later to pay him back, he's, please don't insult me like this. Your money's no good here.
Yeah.
I'm going, Bill, that was Bill. He had it. I mean, Bill could be tough if you didn't know him, but he had a heart of gold.
Yeah.
And people used to always yell shit at him because in between acts, he'd come on stage as they're changing the sets. In 2 weeks, we're going to have Melanie here. In 3 weeks, Spirit from Los Angeles coming with 10 years after. And somebody in the back would yell, fuck you, Graham, you're a ripoff. You go, yeah, another heavy from Daly City. You're a smut, Graham. And you just come up here and say that to my face.
Oh, yeah, my God. So I was just thinking while you were talking about, being able to be backstage and you didn't, that it was, and David and I talked about this as well a little bit about how those are the days where everybody kind of knew everybody, like the photographer or the musician or the, or the dancer or the light. And now it's like, there's no way that could happen. You have to have the pass and you have to have, it's so regimented. And we were talking about, is it possible for we can never go backwards, but is it possible that we can have a scene where there is a cool place where people can get together and, you can come photograph? Do you think it's possible for it to come back around in some way?
Only in small ways, because now everything that's cool has been co-opted by the corporations.
Like Ticketmaster and all of that, and that kind
Not
of
only
thing.
Ticketmaster, even hip songs you see in commercials. You can't book a show without fucking Ticketmaster and all that bullshit. Who was it that tried? Pearl Jam.
Pearl Jam, yeah.
And it kind of fucked them up.
Yeah.
It's hard to do any of that now. Is it impossible? No, but it's very difficult.
Well, even bringing it back once again to the Haight, I keep trying to loop back, but the deluxe being gone. Now, to me, that's even though it wasn't my exact kind of venue, it was a venue and it was a community thing. I live on Page and Masonic. There was a place where you'd go and that band's playing.
Well, the I-Beam before that.
Oh, the I-Beam. I used to go to the I-Beam. I mean, that kind of thing. Is that possible to have something like that again? I don't know.
Not like that.
No.
And you know what?
I-Beam
all the things you're talking about,
Yeah.
This has always happened. When this was happening in 67, by that time already in New York, places like Roseland that Bill used to go
used to go there.
that was on its way out. Yeah. I remember one night.
Wetlands. You ever go to Wetlands? That was downtown. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
That's where Blues Traveler and Spin Doctors and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I remember Santana was playing one night, and Bill had the stick and the company, and he was hitting, and I'm shooting, and he turns to me and he goes, Michael, he says, this is body music. He says, I used to go to Roseland, Tito Puente. We would dance all night, and we'd be soaking wet and come out, and the sun would be coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I keep alluding to that. I guess because I'm hungry, I'm hungry for something to be. We still have the Fillmore, but again, that's turned into Live Nation. I think it's Live Nation, but I'm, even David was entertaining the idea. Maybe there's a place we could start a small venue. Not that we're going to start it, but just a small groovy hang. I don't know if it's possible or not. I don't know if I'm.
It's hard because it's rents.
Yeah.
And it's also booking bands, and the really hard thing now, the only bands that are making money. I mean. And at some point, you have to make money to fucking survive. Yeah. If we're all in a band and my wife's pregnant and we're making no money, we can't pay rent. My wife's going to say, hey, you know what? You've had a great time.
Right. And we're getting older.
Fuck these guys.
Yeah.
You've got to get a job.
Yeah.
And now all the young bands, they don't last very long because there are very few places to play. This is happening in London. This is happening in New York. It's happening with studios. Wally Heider's used to be downtown in the Tenderloin. Everybody would mix there. The record plant, all these places, they're gone.
Yeah.
Nothing is forever.
Still have Hyde Street. That's still there. But
well, you know what the one constant on the planet is?
What?
Change.
Oh, yeah.
And most people don't like change because with change is the unknown. And even a woman in an abusive relationship who's, you've been married to Ike Turner and he's beating the shit out of you, it's bad,
Yeah.
but at least you know the parameters of bad. And leaving Ike Turner to go out into the world alone,
Yeah.
a lot of people go, oh, fuck, I'm not
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
And that's,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I mean,
We have the chapel too. There's a few little pockets of places in the city still, but
yeah.
I mean, I'm just talking about the Haight, of course, because I live with
yeah.
Waco. I just feel like the Milk Bar tries. I don't want to poo-poo the Milk Bar, but it's just something
No,
that's
it's
not.
always,
It's
the
not
Milk Bar has always
grooving.
been the
It needs a
same thing.
groove. It needs a better booker. I don't know.
Night Break used to be a
Oh,
great
Night
place
Break,
for a
uh-huh.
while.
Yeah,
But you
man.
know what? Those are small places, and the
A lot of
bands.
great bands.
Yeah.
Chris
Well,
Isaac
yeah.
and
I mean,
frickin'
he did his
Les Claypool and
Yeah. Well, when Chris first started, remember he did his residency. He'd do weeks at a time.
Yeah.
They would use our place at Frederick and Clayton, our upstairs. That was backstage for about 2 weeks, where they dress. And finally, Kristen said, "Hey, you know what? First it was the band, then it was the band and the girlfriends and all that." And she goes, "Hey, you know what? Our son's trying to study for school.
Yeah.
I don't want to walk around my room with a bunch of fucking groupies and all these people. No, done."
No, that reminds me. I wanted to jump back to the McClure, Michael McClure being your landlord,
Right.
which is astounding. I don't know if you want to kind of do a brief who he was. He was a beat.
Yeah. You know what? When I first moved in, I had no fucking idea who he was.
Which was what year?
1973.
Okay, so it was the beat thing had already passed clearly. But,
Yeah.
I mean, but he was still hanging out.
And then somebody said, "Oh, your landlord. He's a famous poet."
And that was on Downey. Was that on Downey?
No, well, he and Joanna and Janie, their daughter, lived on Downey. They were renting. They had bought this place at 861 Ashbury.
Okay.
At that point in time, when I moved in, 2/3 of the places in this whole neighborhood were for sale. They were all for sale for between $28,000 and $35,000,
Jesus.
with 3.25 federally insured wrap loans. Now, had you purchased something then, you probably would have had to put that much again into it to have it rewired, get the plumbing up to date. But that was everything. So the story I had heard is somebody in Joanna's family had died and left her some money, and they used that as a down payment.
Okay.
And that's why they stayed. And then ultimately, they separated and were divorced in, I think, 83, 84. But yeah.
But what a landlord to have, my lord. As landlords go, I would imagine Michael McClure would be a pretty boss landlord.
Well, you know what he was, because he didn't handle it. He didn't deal with it.
Okay.
I mean, that's why I could get away for a while with being 2 months late.
Yeah. So you came in after the dead house. They'd already moved to Marin.
They'd moved to Marin, but they would have been right down the street.
Right.
Wes Wilson, who lived across the street from them, the poster artist.
Of course.
He had separated from his family. I think he'd gone back to Kansas, but his wife and daughter were still there because Kelly used to babysit for us.
Oh wait,
no,
not
daughter.
Okay,
Kelly.
sorry.
Wes Wilson's daughter,
Okay. All
Kelly
right, sorry.
Wilson.
The name Kelly came to head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, when the dead, remember they were busted.
Oh yeah.
One of the reasons Jerry wasn't busted, he was over at Wes's house.
Oh.
Yeah, and then all the shit came down.
Oh, and Michael Stepanian came in and helped them out, right? And
Stepanian
Halo and Rohan.
Brian Rowan,
dear friend, God rest your soul, Brian. We love you.
Brian, the man that when he was audited by the IRS and they wanted to see his books, he said, "Oh, I don't have any books. They're all up here." And the IRS said, "Yeah, sit down." Wow. And no, they jammed him big time.
Wow.
I think he did some time.
Oh well, we'll
That's a whole
edit
other
that.
story.
Yeah, Brian, you're free now.
Brian's a Red Sox fan, so he deserved it.
Oh.
All of those guys, Stempanian, the story I heard was, if you were busted, if you're a dealer, the DEA busted you, you get your 2 calls. Who do you call? You call your fucking attorney. If you called Brian or Michael, as soon as you hung up the phone, they would literally beat the shit out of you. because they knew that was the last shot they'd get. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Holy moly. Well, I just thought about Brian. I loved him to pieces. He was
Yeah.
a great supporter of the magazine. He was like, "How much is an ad?" And I said, "Oh, for you, you're new. And you're the worst businesswoman ever." And he wrote me a check like right then
Well,
and
he
there.
was the worst businessman ever too.
Well,
Never.
maybe.
No, so it was good.
Okay, the music scene then and now, clubs. Can we bring it back? I have a feeling that somehow there's going to be people are really hungry for something groovy to be a scene, where we can all kind of get together. You don't even have to. It's not even a buy the ticket and go to the show. Everybody just kind of
Well, it has
shows
to
up.
be organic, and
Yeah.
that stuff still happens, and it's harder now,
Yeah.
especially with the phone and with social media
Right.
and influencers, and all of that has changed. And again, everything's a constant change,
Yeah.
and we're older. I
Yeah.
mean, I
Exactly.
see some of this as, oh, this is all bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the things when we were in our late teens, early 20s, that older people told us this is
Yeah,
the
you're
way
like,
it is.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
like, what?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, that's in the olden days.
Well, and David said something very interesting thing. Too is that he says I think most musicians, a lot of people have lost the interest of playing together, like in all sorts of ways. Like jamming, like that's you can make a record on a machine alone now.
Yeah.
So that whole jamming thing, hey, hey man, show up at my house. We'll jam out tonight, or
Well, it's always
the jam thing.
the same thing with families. This has made everything different, and you know what? There's a constant change, and I go back. I don't want to get way off track, but space dust, evolution, and all the way it's constantly moving and changing, and we're now going into the Ethernet. Our minds are taking in more information visually, orally, in a month than many of our grandparents took in a lifetime. It's rewiring our brains. It's changing us as a species.
Right.
I mean, straight up.
Right.
And so all of these things, it's all factors. It's nothing that most people think a lot about because right now we've got to fucking keep it together to deal on a daily basis with paying rent and doing all the things we're doing. And it gets back to who are we? Why are we
I love it.
here?
Love it.
What is this all about? And as crazy and esoteric as it sounds, that's really what it is all about. And why are we here? What is the meaning of all this?
Well, the thing that I find beautiful, I mean, like I said, I lost my mom. She got sick when I was 11, and she passed when I was 19. But the Sex Pistols show, where we began with this interview, and how here I am full circle with the guy who was at the same show I was at. And how many years ago was that? Freaking
79.
40 years ago? 78.
Yeah,
78.
78.
40 years ago? I don't know. Like 90s to me seems like yesterday. But here we are. Ben Funk Taurus is back in my life. I went to SF State back in 80. So I feel like that's part of the change you're talking about. It is a circle.
Sure.
And it is coming back around. And I feel maybe I'm going to be 62 next year. I just feel hopeful. I feel like, wow, the grooviness of what I had when I was that, coming of age seems to be coming around more and more often in my life. Like sitting here talking to you, hanging out with, Ben Funk Taurus and Joel Selvin and talking to people about the Sex Pistols. And I that excites me.
Yeah. I mean, Selvin was another person who helped me out a lot, because he'd come from the Berkeley Gazette, and he started his own music newspaper.
I didn't know that. What was it called? I'll ask him.
Ask him. Because the first 4 or 5 issues, I did a lot of things for him.
Well,
and he was great with that. Yeah. And you could do that then. Yeah. It was a lot easier.
Yeah.
Now you can't get a magazine or a paper together unless you have millions.
I'm doing it, and I don't have millions.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if you're
You
doing
mean
like Sports Illustrated,
yeah.
you literally have to have anywhere from, you have to be ready and willing and able to lose 5 or 6 or 10 million a year for 7 or 8 years before you go into the blue.
Right. Yeah.
Who fucking does that?
Right. Well, I might be doing that, but on a much lower level.
Yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's creeping forward.
Sure.
But like again, this full circle of the Bill Graham mural, which I saw when they did the unveiling of the beautiful Bill Graham mural
Sure.
on Post at Fillmore. You know that, and then Joel Selvin. I just saw him at Amoeba the same day. I think it was a couple of days later at Amoeba doing a book signing, and kind of. I just feel like there's this really huge effort to not effort, but even joy of keeping that stuff, keeping the plates spinning of what the thing is.
This town has always been special, magic. I mean, I can throw a lot of words around, but the energy here, not just the fact that it's a port city with the Orient, but it's always been a hot spot for freaks,
Well, the Beats and North
the
Beach and the
beads,
hippies,
well, and people,
Baghdad by the Bay, Herb
gold
Green, Herb
rushers,
Kane.
all of that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's it's an energy. And again, when I say energy, all of the stuff that's really important in life, you know, from the counterculture and all, that's all an energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's as important, if not more important, than all the other things, the spin-offs.
Mm-hmm.
You can't put a word, a name to it, but it infects all of us. That's why you are you doing what you're doing. That's how we met.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, what does it mean? It means something. I'm not sure, but it's not random and it's not coincidence.
Yeah.
And that's all of this, and that's why we're here.
It's the Wild West. I mean, my grandmother came from El Paso, Texas, and I think it was 1890 or something, in a covered wagon,
Sure.
you know, with her family to come get the gold, to come, you know, this is the edge of the thing,
Yeah.
you know, unless
Oh,
you go to
yeah.
Hawaii, of course. But
Unless you're Bear who went to Australia
oh, well, there it's that.
and
Yeah.
told me that no, Z, you've got to move because California, when the earthquake comes, it's going to break off. And it's going to be nothing. And I said, Bear, where the fuck am I going to live in Australia? He goes, hey man, I've got property. You can put a teepee on it. And he was serious. He was serious. And I said, yeah, probably not.
And speaking of bears, okay, bringing it again to the Haight. Can you give me a story of maybe well, let's do this. The Haight then, the Haight now. You've seen it change greatly. And I know some people are really angry about the kids on the street, but as Bob Weir said, now you found your home, now keep it clean and make it pretty. But do you feel like the Haight still has an essence of, I mean, there's still that vibe is still lurking? It may not be
I
as
think it wants to be, and I think it's
okay.
attracted a lot of different and disparate groups of people. Um, and Bob will tell you this, you hook up with him again, even in the Summer of Love, a lot of the people that came, they weren't the people that were here this summer before
Right.
when people were going to Nevada, and the scene was really starting, the charlatans, and when basically the scene was the family dog
Yeah.
and the places around there. It's ever changing, and by the time the Summer of Love came, I'm sure a lot of the people, the veterans, that's when they decided, hey, you know what? Fuck this.
Yeah.
We're getting out of here.
But how do you feel when you walk down Haight Street now? Like, you know, when you go to Gus's Market or whatever you do you feel like, do you feel sad? Do you feel like, I don't know.
No, every day it's different because
of
it's where my headspace is on a
Right, of
particular
course.
day. I think it's sad if you get past the post office, that whole stretch
Yeah.
that's been basically nothing there for a year and a half because of that fucking landlord.
It's Maven.
Yeah, the high rents.
Maven, M-A-V-E, but they did open a new toy store there.
Oh,
It's,
yeah.
I know.
One person,
God bless. We wish you well.
that's crazy
Yeah.
and does it, you know, and if they ball out, they might be able to cover their rent with the rents, and they make more writing that shit off. That's what's bad. But so I see that. A lot of the gutter punks, I'm way done with.
Yeah.
A lot of the kids that are runaways, the kids that leave their homes in Oregon at 18 because they're going to live on the street. I mean, when I think about that, it's different from what it was in 67. Who wants to live on the fucking street every day like all the people right outside where you work,
Hmm.
where's that at? What does that have to do with freedom?
But maybe they
It's
have no better place to be. Maybe they came from a really fucked up situation. You know.
okay. Here's my thing there. If you're going to do that, you can't just go camp out in a neighborhood where your freedom suddenly is going to start impinging on other people's freedom, especially if you're in your, like many of them, late 30s to early 40s to mid 50s or 60s, alcohol, substance abuse, mental health issues, all of those things. It's not a good look. None of that was here in the 60s.
Well,
You
you said
had,
people were taking a lot of acid. You know that I'm just playing
oh
devil's
yeah, no, no,
advocate.
no, no.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They were dosing it up. They were partying
they
it
were
up.
dosing,
There was people drinking too.
and
Look at
that was the
Janice.
beginning of that was the beginning of the end for all of that because of that.
Right.
And that's when kind of like the dream for a lot of people died.
The 27 club,
Yeah.
27 member club or whatever. Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain.
Well, a lot of those people, and it's like Kirk was like that's two generations later,
Right.
but
But odd.
all troubled with a few exceptions. Um, Jim's dad never,
Yeah.
realized who he was until after he was gone. He was an admiral. He lived in Alameda at one point when his dad was in the Navy
Wow.
because his dad was a fucking admiral. Janice, God rest her soul, Janice was a fucking mess from day one. She had a heart of gold. She was, she could be your best girlfriend. When she drank, she could be like so many people when they drank. I remember one night her and Bill having a shout out. I thought Bill was going to hit her. He didn't. Yeah, fuck you, Bill, you motherfucker. You fucking, and it was like, not Jackie Kennedy here. And I love, like Courtney Love was kind of the same way. And I love women that don't take any shit. Janice, for me, was not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Her performances, unbelievable.
Yeah.
What a voice.
Yeah.
What a woman.
Yeah.
I was more into like Julie Driscoll, but that's me. Everybody's got their own, what they like.
How did we go down that road? Oh, because
Well,
I was asking you about the
all the
neighborhood.
people that are dead.
The neighborhood.
In the neighborhood.
How
And
it's
you know
changed.
what? The drugs and a lot of it, I think most of the people on that list that OD'd, that was the fucking last thing they thought was going to happen. They were wrong place, wrong time, hot shot.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck, that could have been me. And I say that to people. Oh no, your shit was together. I went, you know what? I was lucky. That could have been me. That could have been anybody. What we were doing, it's no different than Lewis and Clark. We were taking wild rides, if not into outer space, into inner space, which, and some people, I had a friend that worked at Discount Records in Berkeley. He left me one night at Fillmore West. I didn't see him for 2 weeks. He was up in a tree. They finally got him down. He was in a mental hospital for 10 or 11 months. Never was the same.
Wow.
Wife left him. And that shit could happen.
Wow.
Cautionary tale.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what would you like to say to the Haight aspirate? So Haight Street Voice is hyper local with a global perspective.
Right.
So it's not just this community. It's
No, we're
communities everywhere. What would you like to say to the Haight community, let alone communities everywhere all over the world? Michael Zagaris.
There's only love, which that unites all of us. It's very difficult at this point on this planet where we are right now. But I think the Haight, for everything it represented and everything it could represent, is kind of like a beacon in the middle of an angry sea. And even if we can't live up to and become all the things we want to, we can at least try. And the Haight has always been about creating your own reality, creating peace, creating love. Um, and me even saying that now, some people laugh, because we're in a very cynical period of our history on the planet.
And I think to feel connected to something, because the world's all over the place, and to feel like, hey, there's for me, I mean, I live here, so I just feel like saying hello, hey, how you
Yeah.
doing? Like, that's why I love working at the store, because I say hi to everybody, and
Sure.
whatever.
Well, in that store too, what people come from all over the world. I mean, it's kind of like this was the ideal. It's the same reason people go to the fucking cemetery in Paris, where all the famous people are
Jim
buried, from
Morrison.
Jim Morrison. You want to go to an energy spot, even if it's not that anymore, where that was. This was a magical moment in time. Nobody can deny that. And especially if you weren't alive or you weren't there, I think you want to go subconsciously, if not consciously, to where maybe I can feel like what it was like, or some of that can come up into me. I think that's what the Haight is.
Yeah. Like the Egyptian, the pyramids and the Mayan temples and all. I mean, that right? I mean,
The Anne Frank house, all the different
Yeah.
places on the planet people go to. The Roman Colosseum.
Yeah.
You can kind of go there and like, oh, this is what it was like.
Breathtaking.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that's never been enough. I want to live it.
Yeah.
I mean, I still do. I want to, like that day I told you at People's Park. I didn't want to just bear witness. I wanted to become the revolution and everything about it and feel it.
Yeah.
And the same with the music. I started doing this not because I wanted to be a photographer or wanted to capture the musicians. I wanted to be in the band. I wanted to be the Beatles. I wanted to be the Stones. I didn't have the discipline to play the instrument well enough to put in the 2 or 3 years.
Right.
What was the next best thing? Well, when you're with the band, it's the road manager, occasionally a girlfriend or a groupie, and the dope dealer, and the photographer. So I came with
And the journalist.
Yeah, the journalist. No, and you come and to me, all of this, everything I've done, and in sports too, I am, in my mind, when I'm doing this, I am a player.
Yeah.
I'm a baseball player. I'm a musician. And I'm using the camera as a mirror to freeze moments in time of the places I am that I can share with people later. But in the meantime, I am that. And it's no different than an actor that's using the Stanislavski method, that when he's acting, he's not acting. He has become who he is. And it enables you, because life is so short, as many cool things as there are, and there are a lot of cool things around, no matter how cool they are, for me, at a certain point, I get bored. It's like, oh, okay, I've done this. I've toured with this person. Now what?
Right.
And this has allowed me to put on different
Well,
coats
yeah, I
and
mean, there's a fine art to you. I think of being on the sidelines at a freaking football game or a baseball game and being invisible and having those guys be 100% what they're doing if you weren't, if you were there or not there. That's an art, and same with musicians. I've been backstage as a journalist, and I don't go running up to people. I sit back, and they invite me in, and then I'm sort of like just still quiet about it.
Yeah.
And that's an art, that. I mean, but the baseball thing and the football thing, I mean, I commend you highly, because the photos you've taken are.
It's I played, and to me, from day one, when I do that, it's no different than when I played. When I first started with the Niners, Bill Walsh, I said I have to have total access. I want because I want to be invisible. The first couple of weeks, we'd go to the stadium. I'd have my locker. I'd walk around pregame. I'd have a jock strap on, maybe a half shirt, my camera. And the first couple of weeks, guys are like, See, what the fuck, man? But then after that, you're invisible because you're just like they are. So nobody, and it allows you to show that world the way that world really
Right.
exists. The same with the musicians. You walk in, like
Yeah.
pretty soon I've got tapes of like Joe Cocker, the first time he played at Fillmore West, they'd driven up from LA. And I said, "Oh, you guys drove up?" I said, "Did you come up 5?" He says, "Oh, no." He says, "We stayed at, what was that place in Santa Barbara with all the candles, the hotel?"
Oh, Hearst Castle? No.
No,
No,
it's,
no.
it's a
I don't know.
famous old hotel.
I
But
don't.
he says, "So the next morning," he says, "we got in our vans." And he says, "We dropped some acid and went on Highway 1. I said, "Wait a minute." And at the time when I'm doing the tape recorder's gone, I'm like, "So you dropped acid on Highway 1? He says, "Oh, yeah." And Chris Denton said, "Yeah, it was fucking amazing." And I said, "Well, how did you drive?" And he says, he says, "1 minute," he says, "we're bowling along," and he says, "we go around a corner, and it was like we'd fucking driven into heaven." And he says, fucking the sky, the ocean, it's like fucking blimey. It was amazing. And at that point in time too, Nixon was president and was starting to spray the marijuana fields in Mexico with paraquat. And I remember Chris Staten, who was at that point in time, he was Cocker's keyboard player, but he also played with Traffic, Stones. He goes, "Well, he didn't get this one."
Wow. I was thinking I flashed on Jane Goodall too, and the Foss and out in the thing with the gorillas. I mean, they became part of what I mean. Sorry,
Yeah.
not that's just they became part of the environment,
Yeah.
and that is the fine art of your incredible work. And I wanted to also mention I grew up with the 70s Raiders. I grew up with Bolitnikoff. I grew up with Kenny Stabler. I grew up with George Blanda. I grew up with, the A's and Vida Blue and
Sure.
and I mean, and that's part of the Bay Area. I'd like to say that whole vibe.
Those guys are all my friends.
The beauty of those teams, though, and maybe
Yeah.
that's because I'm from here,
Oh, no, but they were like, Oakland was like Baltimore. And remember when you were growing up, before they went to LA, that crowd was a blue collar, working class, middle class crowd. And they were and the Raiders were part of the community. Yeah. And they were all those guys, they used to hang with the people.
John Matuzak, there was a bar they'd go to. My mom and dad used to go to this bar right after a game, and John Matuzak was there, I guess, one time. And,
well, you know where you are
and my mom says, my mom says, "Oh, what position do you play?" My mom was, she didn't know food. And he says, "I'm a nose guard." She goes, "Oh, no wonder your nose looks like that." And my dad thought, "Oh, no." It was fine. They had another drink, but it was, yeah.
Well, he used to hang out at the Palms. And
good old John Matuzak.
I mean, he turned me on to his hairdresser. This is a great story. You can't put it in the thing.
Oh, okay.
But so
here, I'll pause it. I'll stop.
Okay, so this guy